I'm Brad and this is Brett. We're from the Commonaeros and we're down here at the Bright Brewery to give you guys a review on the Norco Sight 7.2 Carbon. We've been giving it a good hit out over the last couple of days up here in the northeast, out at Mount Beauty, Bright and also Falls Creek. So the Norco Sight that we've had on test is a 140mm front and rear travel bike, smack bang in the middle of the trail enduro category. A couple of features that we've got on the bike: the RockShox pike up front, the DB inline from Cane Creek holding down the rear end. We've got SRAM's new guide RC brakes for the stopping power, and we've also got RockShox's very popular Reverb Stealth for the dropper post. So Brett, after a couple of days of riding, give me your overall impression of the bike.
The biggest thing for me would be the front end stiffness. It's huge. I mean, the pike takes care of every bump you're hitting. I mean, you're throwing it into corners and it just grips. I mean, it makes the Magic Mary tyre, seem way better than probably what it is. It performs flawlessly. I mean, it was a fair hoot getting down some of those tracks. I mean, it was probably my skills were potentially outweighed by the bike's capabilities today.
Yeah, definitely.
I think that was sort of the big highlight for me. The drivetrain, the X1, I think it worked really well. It's obviously the sort of the trickle down. I mean, I've ridden XX1, X01, X1. I mean, the X1 at the lowest price point. I mean, it works just as well as any of the others, which was great.
Absolutely, absolutely. I also thought the front end of it was definitely a highlight.
Yeah.
Just point and shoot, which is definitely what you want on some of the steeper and rockier things that we've ridden up here.
Yeah.
And then looking at the rear end of it, how did you find the rear end?
To be honest, I thought it was a bit flexy. I mean, you could definitely, overall, I'd say the front end stiffness outweighed sort of the rear end. I mean, the front felt a lot more capable than the rear. Not to say it didn't get me out of any trouble when that aroused, but it, definitely not the stiffest rear end on the market. I mean, it held traction really well everywhere, but you could notice some flex in it for sure.
Yeah, which is really interesting because they've gone for the bolt-through rear axle there from Syntace. Did you have any particular thoughts on that?
With the amount of sort of quick release through axles out there, I don't know why they're not using one. Not every ride you go on, every time you pull apart your bike, you want to pull out your Allen key set. So, I mean, it's especially on these type of bikes. I mean, it's not a downhill bike. It doesn't need to have all the bolt-up axles. So, for me, not necessary. But again, doesn't really affect the function of the bike. It's just one of those little things.
It's just a bit of a nagging kind of thing in the back of your mind. Next thing that we probably should talk about is the length of the bike. How did you find that? I noticed that sometimes it probably wasn't as snappy coming out of corners as I would love it to be. I mean, the front end is in and out, no problem. The rear end, I don't know, it just sort of dragged a little bit sometimes on the tighter corners.
Yeah, can't say I had that problem. I mean, yeah, there's probably some other bikes out there might have a snappier rear end, but it was really stable through all the corners for me. So I didn't really sort of feel that so much, but it's it's not the shortest rear end on a bike out there, but I mean it did the job.
I think one of the big things that was a highlight for me, other than the pike and the front end stiffness obviously, was the pedalling ability of it. For a 140mm travel bike, it pedalled brilliantly. The climbing, the way that Norco have worked the suspension design with the anti-squat is pretty incredible, really.
Yeah, I mean, there's plenty of corners around here. These natural trails, it's tight, it's twisty. I mean, you've got to slow down a lot for the corners, and that sort of punch out the corners was definitely noticeable with, get the power down. So, I mean, if you're into racing, I mean, that was a pretty good thing. And I mean, even we rode it up a few pretty technical climbs and it performed really well. I didn't feel the need to use the climb mode. I mean, I thought the bike handled it quite well. I mean, I didn't need to flick that on the rear shock. What about yourself?
I'm definitely a set it and forget it type. Yeah. So to be honest, I never played with it at all and never had any issues, which is, commendable for Norco.
Yeah, no, for sure. I thought a pretty good touch on the bike was sort of the race face cockpit. I mean, a lot of brands are doing their own handlebars and stems and that, but I think it's pretty good to see sort of some good high-end products.
Yeah, you definitely wouldn't need to change the bar on that. It's a really nice feel and width about it, and I enjoyed it. It just feels like a very comfortable bike. So to wrap up with the Sight that we've been riding, for the price point that it's at, it's probably towards mid to higher end, I guess, in terms of retail price. I would say if you're looking at a bike around that spec, you would be pretty crazy to not at least give it a try, and it's a very, very comfortable and competent bike. The touches, everything on it is dialed. I wouldn't really think you'd need anything else on it unless you had any personal preference, but I guess, do you get that same kind of feeling?
Yeah, definitely a straight out the box, race ready bike. Buy it, don't have to spend another cent. It's all good to go, everything you want to have.
Yeah, that's it. One-stop shop, all sorted. Away you go at the races.